Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. Today, I have with me someone really special for the second time on Dev Talks, Mr. Ravi Joshi. He's got an insight onto a lot of matters as he comes from a very interesting organization within India called the RAW. And I'm going to try and get that insight for us to understand something that we don't read about, something that we don't talk about especially a very volatile region in this world called West Asia, Middle East, as you like it. Firstly, sir, good evening and welcome to the show, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, this is a area which was in the center of the world for a long time, and now, of course, the centers have changed. Uh, Oil was one of the biggest things, and a lot of people do believe that all the chaos within the Middle East, West Asia, as you like to call it,
Yeah,
is
yeah.
because of the oil. So let's get a introduction and opening remark and opening comment as to how you'd like to structure. And guys, let me say this. This is going to be a series of discussions where we will threadbare a whole lot of things. For example, the war in Syria, none of us know what exactly is happening there. So let's learn from Sir. So, Sir, over to you. Let's hear a overall introduction as to what the area is all about, what are the fault lines, and what has happened in the past 100 years.
Thank you, Aadi. West Asia is one of the most important regions in the world because of three major factors. One is it is the energy resource center of the world. Okay, the main source of oil and gas, mainly oil, comes from Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Iraq. And these countries have been traditionally, since the 1960s, the sole source of energy supply. So later on, Venezuela and other countries have picked up, and Russia too. But these are the traditional suppliers of energy to the world. Now, that makes them the most critical part of the world. Second is that these countries are singularly Islamic, either republics or Islamic monarchies. So these are the two patterns of political arrangement they have got. And Islam has been the key driver and most important factor that has shaped the politics of this region, the history of this region, and its relationship with other countries in the world. And as you know, Islam was born in that area, and the two holiest sites of Islam, Mecca and Medina, are in Saudi Arabia today. So and a third most important region is that, particularly for India and for Egypt and for Turkey, it has been the source of the largest migrant laborers from these three countries going into this region. Now, to give you a simple example, from India alone, there are about 10 million to 12 million laborers or migrants, we can call it. The laborers is a very wrong word because it denotes only unskilled workers, but there are also skilled and unskilled and highly proficient managerial skill workers in this country, in this region from India, and who transmit every year about $110 billion to India. So similarly, Egypt has got about 2 million Egyptians working in Saudi Arabia and the Gulf monarchies, mainly oil-rich countries, and they also receive in roughly about 10 to 15 billion dollars per year from this region. And then other regions are Bangladesh, Pakistan, and even Turkey have all have sent their migrant laborers to this region. So, and their transfer of funds to those countries is actually a vital economic component of their GDP. Now, having outlined these three factors, let me explain what do we mean by West Asia? Where does it start and where does it end? West Asia starts almost from the border of Pakistan, that's where Iran begins, to the Sinai region of Egypt. Egypt is actually not exactly part of West Asia, but the Sinai Peninsula of Egypt is part of Asia. The rest of the country is part of West Africa. So when we talk of West Asia, we mean that particular region which is between from Iran to Egypt and across the Gulf from Saudi Arabia to Yemen to Oman, and then Kuwait, Bahrain, and Qatar. And then on this side of the Gulf, Persian Gulf, we have Iran, Iraq, Syria, Jordan, and of course now Kurdistan. Now, these are the broad number of countries, broadly in that region. But in my discourse in the next few episodes, I will concentrate on the few major powers, such as Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Syria, and I'll also talk a little bit about Kurdistan. Now, we have to mention about one external player in this region who has been most important in shaping the region's politics and history and partly geography. That is, of course, before the World War, it was Britain and France. Now, after World War II, it has been significantly United States of America. US has been the key player, key external player in this region. And to counter the exceeding influence of United States, Russia has also been playing an important role in the region. But Russia's role in the region has been mainly as a counter to US, as a countervailing power to the US, but has not been so important as to shape the politics of the region. Now in the recent times, in the last couple of years, we are seeing the rising importance of China as an external player in the region. So when we talk about West Asia, after mentioning the various powers, we will talk about these three external powers: U.S., Russia, and China.
Fine.
So this will be my various in my various episodes. I will cover that. But today, in my introductory episode, I would like to start by saying that there are four major fault lines in West Asia, which define the politics and the social relationships, the social and diplomatic relations between the various countries in the region. The first fundamental fault line is between the Sunnis and the Shias.
Cheers.
Okay, the Sunnis are those. Actually, most of the countries, most are Sunni countries, whereas Shia is mainly Iran and Iraq Iraq to a large extent. Iran is the largest population of Iran is Shia, and Iraq has a majority population as Shia, but Iraqis also are significant in number. And as long as Saddam Hussein was in power, it was the Sunnis who were ruling Iraq. Only when Saddam Hussein was deposed by the US, the Shias came to power in Iraq. So then, and there are also Shias and Alawites in Syria. And one of the most important militant groups of Shias is the Hezbollah. And of course, there are also, coming back to the fault lines, one is the Sunni Shia fault line. Second is the Israeli-Palestine conflict. The Israeli-Palestine conflict is the second most important fault line which divides the entire Arab world. On which side of the divide you are, okay, and that
Depends.
we will come to when I discuss the Israeli-Palestine problem. The third fault line is between the Gulf monarchies and the Arab republics. The Gulf monarchies are those which are in the Gulf Cooperation Council or on the southern side of Persian Gulf, which starting with Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Bahrain, and Jordan. These are Jordan is outside the Gulf, but it's a part of the Gulf Cooperation Council. So these are all monarchies, and almost a medieval kind of kingdom prevails there, and they are having constant tensions with the Arab republics. The republics are those, we can even include Iran as part of the republic, but most important republic was Iraq. At
Iraq.
one point, Iraq. Yes, and Iraq it was the strongest republic and it was ruled by Saddam Hussein, but it is now in quite a chaotic condition, but it still remains a republic. The other important republics are Syria, and also now Kurdistan is emerging as a republic.
Hmm.
So amongst these, so there's always a tension between the kingdoms and the republics, and the kingdoms are not happy with the kind of political arrangement the republics have, and the republics always challenge the monarchies as medieval outposts which are still holding on in the 21st century. Now, and the fourth fault line, important division, is between the role of Egypt and the rest of the countries. Egypt is a very important Arab player. Egypt is, by its own declaration, it's an Arab state, though
Yeah.
it is geographically not much in West Asia, but it always has played a lead role in West Asia, particularly from the time of Gamal Abdul Nasser.
Nasser.
Uh, Nasser, and after his death, it lost its prominent leading role in the Arab world, particularly after Anwar Sadat made his peace with Menachem Begin of Israel,
Israel. Hmm.
yeah, and the famous Camp David Agreement. So from that time onwards, Egypt started losing its pole position. But no other country has taken that place in the Arab world. The one country which is vying to take that position is Turkey, which is also an outside power, but it doesn't have so many great friends in the region, and it has a conflicting relationship with Saudi Arabia, which which is powerful in the sense of economic power, but it simply does not have the power that Egypt had. So, and nor does Iran have the similar power that Egypt had. So there's a contestation for the pole position. Okay, and but this is still not a settled arrangement. And so there are various countries trying to be the leaders of the region.
Leaders of
We
the
will
Islamic thing.
of the West Asian region,
Hmm.
and their position of leadership depends upon which way the United States is leaning. Uh, so far, till that, U.S. has been vacillating in its support to various countries in the region. Actually, I will have a but I'll make some brief remarks today, saying that the role of America, right from Nixon onwards, who actually was the first one to de-link dollar from the gold,
Gold.
and
Hmm.
at the same time insist upon Saudi Arabia selling its dollar to the world, selling its oil to the world only in dollar. That was the smartest thing he did. And since that 1972, 73, the oil of that entire region has been sold to the world in dollar currency, and that's why dollar, even though it has delinked itself from the gold bonds that the U.S. Treasury has, the dollar continues to be the the go-to currency of the world, the real hard currency, or the most treasured currency of the world. So because everybody buys oil in dollars
Dollars.
now, yeah. So this is one point I want. So from that time onwards, America has been maintaining an indisputable position of leadership in the region. So, however much Russia tried, it could not shake off this particular relationship. And the only point when it changed was when American presidents took different points of view towards the region. For instance, Barack Obama was the first one to say that to try to balance the position, because so far all American presidents had supported the Gulf monarchies against the Arab republics. So it was a skewed relationship, and they said that the we need to support Saudi Arabia because our energy supplies have to be guaranteed and maintained without
Hmm.
any threat. That's why America constantly supported Saudi Arabia. This led to some very uh, strategically imbalanced position in the region. And in fact, because of that, America had to fight two wars against the enemies of Saudi Arabia, basically Iraq. So George Bush Sr. fought the first Operation Freedom against Saddam Hussein in 1991, when Saddam Hussein went and occupied Kuwait.
Kuwait.
So he went and ensured the vacation of Kuwait by Saddam Hussein, but then he withdrew and he did not go back to eliminate Saddam Hussein's rule, which his son George Bush Jr. later on took it up in 2001. So America had to fight two wars in that region. Um, uh, Both were not very conducive to American interests, but they were
They had
dictated by Saudi interests. So we'll again talk about this in greater detail when I go to Saudi Arabia-America relations. So these are the points that I would like to highlight. Okay. So now, if you want to lead me on to anything else, you can go on. Thank you.
So thanks for that introduction. I think it'll give us a good baseline to begin and get a little sense of the game. Of course, the Turks kind of claim history, as you said, claim to be the rulers because they were ruling the large part of this area for a large time. The Saudis now say that we are the kings, boss. We've got oil. We are the ones. Qataris have an issue with regards to you know trying to get in the middle and figure something out. But so one big question which will be brought about is that the extra locationary players, if I may use that phrase, which would be the
External players.
US,
External
external
players. Yeah.
players. The British tried it, but of
Yeah.
course, by the 1950s, the British influence was, it was done.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to ask you because that's where probably the Second World War post is where the
Correct. Correct. Correct.
current crisis starts.
Correct.
So,
Actually, my
what was the
after my
tipping
intro,
points?
yeah. Go on. Sorry to interrupt you. After
No, sir,
this
please.
introductory episode, my first episode will be starting with World War Two. World War One ended the Ottoman Empire. Okay.
Ottoman Empire,
Uh,
sir.
yeah, the Ottoman with the collapse of the Ottoman Empire at the end of World War One, the map of the region changed. At that time, it was Britain and France as the victors distributed the spoils amongst themselves.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Britain was the largest colonial power. It actually created countries like Saudi Arabia, the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, and it created Israel through the Balfour Act. And it also created the Levant region, which was given to France. The Levant
France.
region was Syria. Syria was given to France, um, and Syria and Lebanon. So
Lebanon, Syria, that, yeah.
yeah, Beirut and Damascus, and so and it Britain retained from Iraq downwards, Iraq, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and Iran was always fairly independent. Iran was not a part of the Ottoman Empire, whereas Egypt was ruled by the Ottoman Turks, the slave dynasty called the Mamluks. The
Mamluks, yeah.
Mamluks ruled Egypt for a long period. So Egypt also remained a part of the Ottoman Empire. And I will deal with that in my first episode or after that. This is a introductory. So the World War II and the creation of West Asian map, the geography of West Asia. That will be my first introductory talk. Okay, and then we will go on to the various flashpoints. You know,
Hmm.
with the creation of Israel, what happens to the region? What happens to Palestine? And what happens to the relationship between Palestine and Egypt? And how does Egypt and Nasser take up the defense of Palestine? And how does he formulate an Arab unity, which was a golden moment of Arab history at that time? You know, but they lose their war to Israel in the 7 Day War, the Yom Kippur War, and then the Arab unity falls apart. And then
False. Hmm.
another attempt is made to restore that identity and that pride, and they go to war. This time with much less countries, mainly Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon. These countries together they fight another war with Israel. They lose that war, but they make certain territorial gains. That so
Yes.
this
Hmm.
also I will cover in that when we talk about the creation of West Asia. post World War. Yeah, go on.
But at this minute, one of the things I want to leave the viewers with the first episode is a sense of so that they could also kind of do a little research and think about it, and then probably we could build on those things when the feedback comes to us as well. What my question to you would be, sir, is what is the baseline of the trouble in this region? One, you've mentioned the ethnic and the sectarian issues which are there. You've got the Jews versus the Arabs and Jews versus the Islam, or however you want to put it. Then you've got within Islam, you've got issues, which is a sectarian issue, which is responsible for the chaos that we see in front of us today. As a matter of fact, a large part of the chaos today between Saudi and Iran, there's an issue between a whole lot of things. Uh, what do you think is the main thing responsible, sir? Because in my opinion, and this is my just humble opinion, I'd like you to critique it if you don't mind, sir, is that when the great powers divided this region, just like in Europe, they did not, Europe, India, they did not give precedence to ethnicity, to local history, to local cultures, to local sects and dialects, languages, which is where today we kind of are looking at the great reset within the Middle East. Now, that's a very large statement that I have tried to make. Request your comments, critique, wrong, right? This is just my understanding at the moment, sir.
Yeah, you are raising a very interesting point. I do not know where exactly one can start on this. If you say that in the creation of West Asia by the colonial powers, that by the victors of the Second World War, that is France and Britain, America was completely not in the picture. So at that time, they basically, you know, Britain had not yet grasped the power of oil, the resource that was there underground in this region, in whether it is in Saudi Arabia or in Iraq or in Kuwait, okay, or in Iran. So they may, but still, Britain was clever enough to keep to itself some of the most important oil-rich countries of that region, and it gave to France, Syria and Lebanon, which did not have this resource, so which made no sense to France, and France lost interest in this region pretty soon.
Yeah.
And America, actually, Britain then brought in America. In fact, when the Suez Canal crisis happened, it was Britain and France trying to reassert their rights against Gamal Abdel Nasser's independence and autonomy in the region. You know, he actually the Suez Canal was built by the British and the French, basically to facilitate movement of ships and cargo.
Ships and yeah, yeah.
Yeah, cargo to come across from the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea. And suddenly, Nasser realized the pivotal importance of this Suez Canal and nationalized it. When he nationalized it, both Britain and France declared war on Egypt. Okay, and that particular time, President Roosevelt told both Churchill and French Prime President de Gaulle that we are not with you on this, and we would advise
Truman,
you to
sir.
back off.
Truman, I believe.
Truman, yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
so he advised the British and the French leaders that we are not with you on this, and we are not going to support you. And he advised them to back off. And so that led to a major victory for Egypt, particularly, and it enhanced the Nasser's reputation in the region as the leader who could challenge the colonial powers. So, so that now that only partly answers your point. But your question is, these regions were not exactly divided on the basis of ethnicity or anything, or sects or religion, etc.
Hmm.
Well, uh, the religion was broadly Islam, but within Islam there are Sunnis and Shias. At that time, it did not make much difference because in Iran they hoisted the King Reza Pahlavi, who continued to maintain the interests of Britain in handing over oil supplies to them at a very cheap rate. So it did not. Iran was not really a Shia country at that time. Reza Pahlavi was more interested in projecting Iran as a modern 20th century country interested in progressive values, but
Thought processes.
not
Hmm.
liberal democracy, but under a military dictatorship of his own family. So at that time, Britain could easily manage. They set up Aramco in that region, and that is with the help of American finances and technology to produce and to uh, yeah, that what is that word for oil thing to do yeah to, to produce oil and then distribute it to the world. So with this, at that time, uh, neither religion nor sex or you know creed mattered in that time. Basically, it was an administrative division, and those who asked for certain benefits or favors from Britain got it, like the Hashemite king, and he and his brother. One brother asked for Saudi Arabia, another brother asked for Jordan, and
Hmm.
they said we will support your war with our soldiers. So as long as they got the soldiers, so the British said, okay, after we win the war, you take what you want. And one of the brothers of the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan got control of Mecca and Medina. And that time, Saudi Arabia was nothing but desert. There were very few towns and cities in that region. And the building up of construction of Jeddah and Riyadh happened much later. These were all desert empires where people generally went around on the camel backs. And only after the onset of the oil as a powerful financial resource, they became different world-class cities. So to answer your point, the divisions were administrative divisions.
Hmm.
It was
Hmm.
not based on religion.
That's, I mean, that's, I think, a lot to do with what the issues that we see in front of us today, sir. Excuse me. Because the understanding of the regions, and that's what we see in Ukraine as well. The eastern part, which is Russian predominantly, nobody recognizes it because the ethnicity has kind of not been taken into consideration. So the last point that I'd like to ask you within this particular discussion would be that
Yeah.
how do you think the the powers have actually made the setup within the Middle East kind of uh, play around with them? Because what we've seen is that there has been innate national interest that the Western powers have used within this region without leveraging what the locals actually have to say. They got into Kuwait, they left, they went into Iraq, created a whole tamasha there. They are still in, uh, a lot of people say, I mean, Syria, there's a huge deployment even now. There's Iraq, of course, they've left, but some people say that there is still a lot of control. Kurds, they are supporting. No one knows who supported the ISIS. There are loads of rumors about that. You mentioned in the last episode, which actually started to for me to talk about this. And of course, there are these multiple little fractions that are coming out from there. The main thing that we see, and your comments on this, please, sir, that there has been a innate national interest of the West that has actually driven the region for far too many years now.
Yes, obviously. See, America's interest in getting cheap oil from the region was the main driving force. Okay, but over a period of time, it has lost interest in that key asset. So what I know what you're saying is very true. That basically American interest in the region was driven by its energy resource as its key driver of its economic prosperity. Now, to maintain cheap and constant supply of that energy, America kept on supporting Saudi Arabia. Now, this has also led to a very skewed pattern of development in the region. In that, several Islamic extremist groups have been propped up. Okay, whether it is to fight. First, it started in America to fight against Soviet occupation of Afghanistan when the Mujahideen was created.
Hmm.
When Pakistan was used to create the Mujahideen. From then onwards, America learned that this is a very good way of propping up Islamic insurgents groups, which will carry out our interests in the region. So it has been propping up various kind. America and Saudi Arabia are both involved in propping up Islamic extremist groups, and that's one of the points which I will devote a separate episode on that. The rise of Islamic militancy in the region, right from the Iranian Revolution of 1979. When the Shia revolution happened in Iran, when Ayatollah Khomeini came forward, overthrowing the regime of Shah Reza Pahlavi, uh, so that threatened the Sunni monarchy of Saudi Arabia. So at that time, with the advice of America, the Sunni Republic, the Sunni Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, started promoting Wahhabi Islam across the region and across the world. Not only in that region, but also in Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, and Central Asia, and in Russia, Chechnya, and all this. These became the hotbeds of Wahhabi Islamic fundamentalist activities. So, though it started as a reaction to the coming to power of Khomeini, it became another major threat in itself. And that also we will consider in one of our episodes. Yeah.
Wonderful. So this is going to be a great series, guys. This was to all the viewers. This was basically an introduction where we talked about what the series is all going to be all about. So we will, continue this out. I will. Uh, what I will try and do is sit with Mr. Joshi and kind of put out the series that we're going to cover in the week just before, so that you guys are aware of what we're trying to do and what we will discuss about. Uh,
What we'll do is I will give a reading list. No, you can put it
that'll be
on your
great,
reader.
sir. That'll be
I'll give
great,
a
sir. That'll be
yeah,
great.
yeah. So, and those who are interested can go further and read and get some really in-depth knowledge of the region.
That'll be great, sir. So, guys, this was an introduction, as I was talking about. There's a lot within the Middle East and West Asian region that has not been spoken about. For example, I'm going to leave you here with Sir mentioned last time, piqued my curiosity to a large extent, and I started reading quite a bit about that area. Is that who supported the ISIS? How did the ISIS come about? Sir actually gave us a certain hint with regards to who raised certain Islamic organizations to counter certain other countries and certain other regimes. I'd leave it at that, sir. Thank you so much for piquing this curiosity in me, and I'm sure within
Thank
the
you.
viewers of this show, we'll come back to you with this whole series. And till then, sir, thank you and Jai Hind.
Thank you. Good night. Bye.